This one is called O'Keeffe Poppies. So the students are going to look at Georgia O'Keeffe artwork of poppies. She has a whole kind of collection of just paintings of poppies. I think this one's fun because it's the state flower of California, so you can talk to them a little bit about that if you want. And then they're just going to make these poppies out of paper plates and glue them on. It's a really simple project. It's kind of hard to mess up, so it's great for this age. So what you're gonna need is these inexpensive paper plates. These are just the ones you get at Walmart or anywhere, and they're pretty thin. You wanna make sure that they're not coated. You don't want the ones that are like kind of wax coated because the paint won't stick to them well. So they're just these inexpensive, these are 6-inch plates. And you're gonna give each student about 4 of them. I actually like to plan on 5 because they'll also use 1 as their paint palette. So I'm just gonna count out 5 paper plates. Okay, so I've got all my paper plates. Like I said, we're gonna use 1 of these as the paint palette. So we are going to use paintbrushes, kind of about this size is a good size. You don't want real tiny ones or it'll take them a long time. Just this kind of a medium brush. And then you want tempera paint kind of in the red to orange to yellow colors. So something along these lines. It doesn't have to be exact. You definitely need orange, red, sorry. You definitely need red, orange, magenta, any variety of these. Doesn't have to be this many. I would really only give them about 3 colors, maybe 4 if you want. And then you need black. So there's a trick to working with students this age in paint. The black is only going to be in the center of the flower. So you're not going to give this to them until the very end. If you give this to them on their palette at the beginning, they will end up with a grayish red mess. So I like to hold this back. They come and get the black when they're ready for it. And it just really helps them to have a better finished product. So just give them they need a little bit more red. And then just a little bit of some other colors. Pink's great. Sometimes if you have any of these fluorescent ones, they're kind of fun to put in. I'm gonna throw this orange in. So just something like that. 3 to 4 colors, whatever you've got in your art closet will work. As long as you've got red in there, you can do what you want. So something that I like about this project that makes it really simple is I don't even give them water. They don't need to rinse off their brushes for this because we're gonna mix these colors up. Even if their plate ends up with like a big mishmash of all of these 4 colors, totally fine. Because as you can see here, that's kind of what we're going for. We're kind of going for kind of the mix of these colors. It's nice to see some differentiation between the colors, but if they end up mixed, no big deal. So I don't even like to give them water. And I just like to tell them like 1 plate at a time. I'm just gonna move these out of the way. Kind of think of making petal shapes. If they end up filling in the whole plate, again, totally fine. It's really hard to mess this one up because we're gonna come back later and kind of cut them into petal shapes. So you could even demonstrate for them. Sometimes it'll help them understand why they don't need to rinse their brush, and then that they can just keep dipping into other colors on that palette and mixing them up. And it helps them, like I'll even just grab 2 colors at a time. So I would just show them that, just show them how to mix those colors, that they can just mix them up all the time. And like I said, they can kind of do petal shapes, something like this. If they don't end up with a petal shape and they just have most of the plate, that's great, that's fine. So one thing about this project is you do need it to dry. So this is a great project to either do in 2 separate days, or I've also done this with teachers where I go in before lunch, they paint, everything dries during lunch, and then after lunch we cut it out. The second step, cutting it out and gluing it onto paper, really like 15 minutes. It doesn't take very long. So that is something to keep in mind, that this paint is gonna need to dry before you can move on to the next step. If it's a nice sunny warm day, you can set them outside. You might wanna have them write their names on the back of all their plates first, just because you're gonna end up with so many of these plates. So I'm just gonna keep going. They should end up with 4 poppies when they're done, and encourage them to like try to get different color variations. You know, some will be more orange, some will be more red, more pink, whatever. There is something that you can, if you want to do kind of like talk about poppies and how they are California's state flower, you can also teach them a little bit about the poppy. One thing that you can tell them, and sometimes I remember to do and sometimes not, the poppy really does have 4 petals. They're kind of like in a cup shape, so they can't necessarily see them when they see them growing like that. They can't always tell, but you can also, if you want, have them do 4 petals. Like I said, I did 5 on some of mine. It's fine. But they can do 4 petals if they want to be more like a real poppy. Okay, so I've painted my 4 poppies. As you can see, they're kind of messy, and that's kind of what we're going for. We're going for kind of a messy look. You can see the highlights of different colors, and the colors all blended together. So after they've done that, this is now when you would let them have just a little drop of black paint. They don't need much. Again, I don't like to give this to them to the end. They still don't have to wash their brush. You can still give them no water for this project. And just have them come in and add that black center. And they can do like a small dot, they can do a nice, they can kind of do a messy one, whatever they want to do. They can come back in if they want and add a little highlight in the middle. And then they're done. So again, that's why I like to give them the black at the very end. I really don't like when their colors get kind of murky with the black. Just give it to them at the very end, and then they'll just add that small circle in the middle. Now we're gonna let these dry so that we can cut them out. Okay, we're all ready to finish up our poppies. So they're all ready here. They are mostly dry. You'll want to make sure that they're completely dry. I'm gonna go ahead and get started. So all they're gonna do now is they're just gonna cut flower shapes out of these. This might be difficult for some of them. Again, we're not going for perfection. So what I like to do, if you think they're gonna struggle a little bit, you can kind of tell them that they're just cutting out kind of like V shapes is what's gonna give them. By cutting out V shapes, it's gonna essentially give them the shapes that they're looking for. So just by cutting out those V's, and then I just go and kind of round the edges. But whatever they do is fine. If some of them end up with just the circle paper plates, that is fine. And like I said, the poppies technically have 4 petals. Theirs may end up with 4 or 5 or 6. It doesn't matter. Once they've cut out their poppies, now they're just going to glue them onto a piece of construction paper. So I like to glue them onto a 9x12 piece of construction paper. And then if you're wanting to have them displayed, or maybe you're using them for like open house, you could then mount them again on a piece of black paper. It really makes them pop. You can give them any color choices they want for the background. I like to look at Georgia O'Keeffe's work of poppies, and most of them have a light blue, kind of a black or a red background. Again, totally optional. They can choose what background they'd like to have. And the poppies don't have to be enclosed within the perimeter of the paper. They can hang off, which is why it is nice to also then mount it on a large piece of paper. And then they're just gonna wanna put glue right in the middle. They're not gonna glue down the petals. They're really just gonna glue down the middle. My paint was still a little bit wet, so they'll wanna do these when they're totally dry. I'm just trying to finish the project for you. So again, you can see how mine are still wet. It doesn't make for the best finished product. So let theirs dry all the way. They'll also stick better if they're dry all the way. So there you go, there's the poppies. Again, I like to then mount the entire thing on a larger piece, the 12x18 black construction paper. It just really makes them pop. This is just a fun one. It's pretty hard for them to mess up, so it does, you end up with a situation where everyone ends up with a pretty successful, good-looking project.